Welcome everybody to a Should You Pull video for Winter Ravi-S, and we're going to start off with the important stuff. We're going to talk about her AI, and I've actually used a JP version of her, the loaner version that you can get whenever you start a mission, and we'll take a look at what she decided to do. All right, so here we are with the initial footage for her, and if I put her on auto in a second here, what she's going to do is immediately run forward and attack because she is a physical attacker and her job is to deal damage. So she's not going to buff. That's pretty standard, nothing crazy here. Now she's going to keep on going, so what we'll have to do in a sec here is bring her back and start her out of range of the enemies. And when we do that, she's going to start using her team buffs. So the question is, which team buff does she use first? So we'll see right here, we go to auto. She is using her pierce resist, counter chance reduction, and physical barrier. And she's still not going to be in range, so we'll see what she uses second. And it's the VC ability. So there was AP consumption down for allies, and then she used a magical barrier. Now I'm going to show you something very interesting about that as well in a second here that we discovered. Probably people already knew, but I didn't. So we'll just see her limit burst first because man, it looks good. Oh, rolling of snowball. That's awesome. That is the winter LBs are always pretty good. So big fan of that. Let's talk AI. Let's summarize her AI. She's going to be attacking if possible. Then she'll start using her team buffs. So she has two on her main job. The one that she uses first is her physical barrier and pierce resistance / reaction block rate buff. Now, if she didn't have any other skills to use and she could still buff, then she would use her skill, which gives everybody the ability to cancel out AP auto restore. Now, in this case of the video, she had her new VC with a vision ability, and she used that second, which means that AP auto restore canceller is a pretty low priority. And the other interesting thing about this is that because she used her physical barrier and then she actually used her magical barrier, they both applied. And I did not personally know this. You can actually have a physical and a magical barrier up at the exact same time. Now, certain barriers do cancel, so let's kind of clarify which do and which don't. All right, so I have Esther's stats up on the screen. Thank you so much to my guild leader, Logi, for sharing this and doing this testing with me for me. Thank you so much, Logi. So you can see Esther has applied her physical shield. And in this second screen, she has used I think it's an Aerith TMR to get a magic shield, and she has both of them applying to her current stats. We then went ahead and had her attacked with a physical attack, and she lost 1 count of her shield. And then she was attacked by Aerith, and she lost 1 count of her magic shield. So in this case, these are separate shields that defend against separate things, and they were able to coexist. Now, another example, we have Lightning, who used a physical and a magical shield. Now, this covers 2 types of damage, and when we actually used another magic shield with her, she only kept that skill. So she only has the magic shield. The newest shield overlapped the previous one. So this also applies with things like Mirage, or, you know, we have Victoria, and we have also Super Stern that have the starting the battle with like the 1 time Mirage. Those affect all damage, so those can get overridden by new barriers. So you have to be very careful with that. But it is good to know that in this world where Ravi-S can team buff twice, that she can go into battle with double shields. Let's get on with the rest of the Should You Pull video, and we're going to start with who is Ravi-S strong against and who is she weak against. So she has a Courage Dispel, which is something that is very needed in the current meta. So to name just a few units who actually use Courage regularly, we have Snow, of course, and then we have Leela, Esther, Summer Helena, we have Astrius, we have Elena, and that's just a few of the units that use it. There's kind of a meta right now, and you can see Ready Player Will had a whole video about why tanks aren't so good these days, or they're not doing as well these days. And a big part of it is that you can build teams that have Courage re-raise, and you can kind of get more out of that because everything else gets dispelled. So when you have Courage Dispel, that's a really big deal, and that's going to make her a very effective slot in for the current meta, even though I price is not, necessarily in a bad place right now. She's also just going to be good against any sort of physical damage dealers that don't have a barrier break. She'll be able to match up with them pretty well. She's going to be weak against other courage removers, as she is also a courage user, and any sort of magic attackers, slash attackers. She doesn't have terrible resistances overall, but she doesn't have good magic or slash resistance, and that is certainly something that really shows in the current meta. There's a lot of both slash attackers and magic attackers being kind of peppered into a lot of different teams. Next, we're going to talk about the pros of Winter Raviesse. I'm going to break it into 3 categories. And the first is survivability, which is an absolute must for today's meta. And she's got pretty good survivability in terms of the fact that she has courage, the fact that she has a 50% physical barrier, and that she's very strong against Pierce and Missile. Missile in particular is the one that we're seeing a lot of. But if we do see more Pierce in the future, she is extra strong against it. She can get some pretty high Pierce resistance. She also has decent HP. It's not like tank level, but it's also just a good amount to have. And then obviously you can boost that because she'll have higher base HP. So she is more survivable than your typical unit, but she's not crazy tanky. She's not actually going to be a tank. However, she substitutes for that, that full tankiness by having lots of offense. And we're talking 50% defense penetration. That can go up to 80% with her LB, and 40% slash resist, which can actually, slash resist penetration, which can actually go to 80% if you use the Knight sub job, although you probably won't be using that. She also has a barrier break. We talked about the courage removal already. She can dispel protect. She has a 30% ice imperil, which is also a 2-hit strike attack. So she can actually deal some serious damage and has great penetrations. And that makes her not a tank, but a bulky attacker, a bruiser. And then finally, she has a lot of, applications as a status inflictor. So we're talking frostbite, silence, stun, and also an AP break. Now, frostbite, silence, and stun are all really good. If you can match those up depending on who you're facing, you can really kind of knock them out of contention. So frostbite for your, physical attackers that don't have a lot of AP, and then silence completely wrecks your magic attackers. So I think that there's going to be some AI tuning to do with Winter Raviesse, but she has some pretty enticing applications. Now, Winter Raviesse does have some cons, but before we get to that, this is the part of the video where I ask you to like the video and show some support for the channel. Hopefully you're enjoying the video so far, and if you do, just hit that button. Okay, so the cons. There are a few, and the biggest one for me personally is her timing because of the amount of limited stuff that we're going to have going on right now. Some other people might talk to you about how she'd be one of the later units to get a dream upgrade, possibly. That doesn't worry me as much because she is actually a very good unit, I think, and she's 70 cost, which I didn't even mention in the pros. Like for cost limited content, she is a really strong unit. So I think that she's great. There are some realistic cons, or like some, I guess, persisting cons, like into the future. If you were looking at this video next year when she comes back out again, her low mobility paired with her low range are serious concerns. So a lot of her moves have like they don't reach very far, but they also have straight lines. They're not a diamond, so you can't go diagonally to target somebody. And we actually see that like a lot of the previous units with those types of ranges got those buffed at certain points with job upgrades. So like, for example, with Laswell, who really needed that kind of diamond range, he got that in his EX upgrade. So this is definitely something that is going to be concerning, and that's good that she's a bulky unit to survive long enough to actually get into range. The other thing that I want to take issue with is that she's missing a lot of those undispellable or impenetrable resistance things, like elemental resistances they give some people, or, single target resistance. They give some people AoE resist. She has some. She can use 12 AoE resist with her Knight subjob passive, but then you're passing on either your defense penetration or your slash resist penetration, and I don't think you're going to pass on either of those. So realistically, she just doesn't have those things. And the other thing is that her defense is 10. It goes up to 30 with her dream upgrade, but we're not there yet. She gets 15 single target resist with her dream upgrade as well. So I think that she just might not be as tanky as some people are hoping for at first, but she still has courage, which means at the very least she's surviving one hit against most units, and that is enough. Although she should survive a few extra, if you've built her to be bulky. Next up is a comparison with Snow and Agrias, and this is actually what I would argue is not the correct comparison to make because they're different units with different roles. Snow and Agrias are tanking, and Ravias is not a main tank, even though she does have Taunting Blade. You can actually tell that through her HP, and also just looking at how much attack they gave her. And that's not even considering that she has a 36% attack passive that will get her well above these other units. The other place you can see that is through her resistances, which are definitely lacking. And, those aren't made up for with like Agrias in terms of her single target resistance. So, and then some of her other buffs that she has on her kit. So this is definitely kind of pointing her towards being more of a damage dealer. For my other comparison, I decided to use Esther and Leela because Esther is also a very bulky greatsword user and Leela is a bulky courage user, and now all three of these units have courage. But you can see that Esther and Leela are 100 cost units, but Ravias does not fall too far behind, and she is actually going to be, pushing a lot more attack with her passive equipped. Her HP is better than Leela's. It's worse than Esther's. But where she shines here is her accuracy rate, which we're going to talk about, gets supplemented from several other sources. The biggest thing that she's lacking here compared to these other units is going to actually be her resistances. And otherwise, she's got decent stats, great agility. They're all on 68 agility. And when we look at their survivability and attack capabilities, like she matches up pretty well, right? So we have courage use for all of them. They're all paladin sub. Where we see some breakaway here is Leela actually getting that recovery ability, the 2-use courage, that Esther gets that AoE resistance on her physical barrier, that she gets those huge resistance buffs, and Ravias does not get quite as much, although she does get the 20% pierce resist. And then when you look at the attack part of this graphic, you can see that Ravias actually gets a lot of really good penetrations, and she has a good imperil. The one thing that she's missing is the slash imperil, which the other two units have. They also have single target resist imperil on Esther, and then defense imperil on Leela. So overall, are these 100 cost units, a little bit more pushed? Yeah, in a lot of ways, but you can see that Ravias is, no slouch compared to them. And now I'd like to review the VC that we're going to be getting because it is pretty interesting. So this is a vision card that is for greatsword users, axe users, katana users, and book users. And the bestowed effect is for literally anybody. It's 18% attack. And then there is a global upgrade, which gives accuracy and slash attack to Winter Ravias, regular Ravias, Venera, Tyrell, and Dario. So this is actually pretty good for Winter Ravias. She gets 50 in accuracy from her sword. She gets it on her master ability, and she also gets it from this VC. So, actually they didn't tell us how much accuracy it's going to be, but still, she gets a lot of accuracy from various things, and it means that she actually is going to have pretty good accuracy when all is said and done. Now, this VC also has a vision ability, which gives you a active skill that can reduce the magic damage taken by 35% for 3 times, and then decrease the AP consumption by 40% for 3 turns for allies. Decreasing AP consumption is really strong, and by 40%, that's a pretty big amount. It can be dispelled, of course, but still that's a really good buff to be able to apply to people while you're still taking steps to becoming more impenetrable with your magic barrier. And like we said earlier, this can stack with her physical barrier, which makes it still like a very viable thing to use both. It's definitely a very good VC for her. And we haven't even talked about the party ability yet, which gives you 30 physical human killer, 28% dex, 20 pierce resist. And that is, again, for greatsword, axe, katana, and book users. I don't love the party effect, but like a lot of people have stated, like these are really big bonuses. 30 human killer is a really big amount of it, and the fact that you also get dexterity, which gives you some accuracy, some crit rate, but also the pierce resistance. Like I was saying, she can stack so much pierce resistance, and she will if you use this VC and her her buff, her physical barrier. She's going to get 40% right there. So do I think this VC is needed? I do, and I think what pushes it is the actual barrier that it uses. Other units can use this as well. Like I said, those jobs or those weapons that apply. So I do think I would recommend that people go for this if specifically they're getting Winter Rav ES, or they would really like to use this on a specific unit that they are a fan of. Before we get to the end, I just wanted to mention her sword, which you'll be able to farm starting on Wednesday. This is a great sword that gives her 15 slash attacks, 15 strike attack, and 15 accuracy, so we can stack more of that accuracy, and 20 slash attack pen for anybody. Now, a lot of you know that Esther has a great sword that you can get from her bingo if you were able to pull Esther, and that has 10 extra slash attack penetration. So it is a better option on the whole, although this new sword is going to have 31 more attack than Esther's sword does, and you could also build it aim if you really wanted to. However, not everybody has access to Esther's sword, as it was a limited thing that was on a bingo board, and you might not have it, making this a very good great sword for a lot of different people. I would definitely recommend crafting one, regardless if you have Esther's or not, just so you have more options. And that will bring us to the end of the video, which means I have to tell you whether or not you should be pulling for Winter Rav ES or not. I think that she's going to be a lot better with her dream upgrades because she gets that 20 defense, she gets 15 single target resistance, and her job 25 skill restores AP. Those are all really powerful effects. But I still think that she fits our meta right now because she is a Courage Dispeller, she is a Courage user herself, so she checks all the boxes, and she should be fairly good at surviving in ice teams with snow drawing fire. I don't think that she's good as a standalone tank, and I think in another element she'd be much worse, but she's in a really good element. And her cost, her utility make her a really solid pickup, especially if we get any sort of deal on how to, how much she's going to cost in terms of pulling for her. So I'm actually pretty tempted myself, as I have limited ice units. I have snow. I have the archer person. I'm totally blanking on the name right now, but I don't have Alaya, and I don't have a lot of other ice units, so she would actually fit my account really well. The problem is that with all these limited things coming up, we still don't know about Lynx, we still don't know about Dragon Quest Tact. I don't know how I could possibly do this. Maybe her banner will run for a while and I'll have a chance to get her later, but I only really recommend that people pull it for her if they're really missing a piece on their ice team. I think otherwise it's best to just wait for the next rerun. I don't think she's a bad unit though. I think you're going to get a lot of use out of her. I love all of the things that her kit offers, and both her sub jobs are upgraded, so lots of good stuff there. At the end of the day, it's going to be your decision. You're going to have to think pretty hard about it. So that's going to be it from me, and I want to hear what you have to say if you're going to be pulling for her, if you're excited for her kit, what else you think about her, and otherwise good luck if you're pulling on Wednesday, and we'll see you all in the next video.